To the regularly scheduled public meeting of May 21st, 2018 of the Township of Washington Township Council. Adequate notice of the meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by the Township Clerk to at least 2 newspapers in January, and this notice has been posted in the Township Bulletin Board and on the Township website. Please notify the Township Clerk for any disability requirements necessary for attendance at Mayor and Council meetings. The fire exits are located through the double doors to your right and through the door on your left. Please silence all your cell phones. Could everybody please stand and salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is the air conditioning on?
Roll call.
Councilman Bruno?
Here.
Councilman Casio?
Here.
Councilman Cumming?
Here.
Councilman Ullman? Council President DeSena?
Here. There's no approval of minutes tonight. Can I have a motion to open the meeting to the public, please?
So moved. Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Anybody who would like to come up and address the council at this time, please do so. Yes, if you can come up, you have a 5-minute time limit. State your name and your address so the clerk can enter it into the minutes.
Good evening.
Ms. Beckmeyer, could you hold on one second?
Yeah. Is this on?
It should be on.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I just wanted Mr. Allman to be seated, and
Sure.
this way you don't have to. Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Judith Beckmeyer. I live at 10 Parkway Court, and I have been a member of this community for over 21 years. I have 20 years background experience as a school psychologist. I have a master's in education, and I have another master's in addictions. For the past 5 years, I have been a substance awareness coordinator in a school system. I have also recently received my license as a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. In my everyday work, I service 3,000 students on an everyday basis. Throughout the course of my day, I confiscate vape pens, Juuls, and other vaping apparatuses that look like USB drives, all of which are used eventually to smoke hash or hemp oil in these apparatuses in some form. As you are aware, all local school districts have banned these apparatuses on school grounds as part of their substance abuse policies, fully knowing that students are not only using them to smoke flavored tobacco products, but also marijuana or hashish oil in one way, shape, or form. Students are attracted to vaping or using e-cigarettes because they are cheaper than cigarettes and they are more readily available. It is also harder for parents to detect them because they don't emit tobacco odor and can be easily concealed. This new rave of vaping has been found to be 40 times more harmful than smoking cigarettes because of the compacted nicotine and potency. Researchers have also found that teens who would not have smoked cigarettes are now using e-cigarettes. It is also found that teens who vape are 6 times more likely to go on to smoke and smoke marijuana. Other studies have shown that a condition called popcorn lung is highly correlated with vaping, and this condition actually scars the tissue of the lungs, and it's all because of a chemical known as, I'm hoping to say this right, diacetyl, D-I-A-C-E-T-Y-L. So all these conditions have been associated with vaping, and we understand that an application has been put in for a vape shop, and I cannot speak more stringently and against this. You know, other studies have shown that it's because of availability, you know, what's available. If it's available and it's in the proximity of schools and or children, they will use it. All right, so what's the answer? The reduction of accessibility. Reduce or obliterate vape shops, especially in certain radiuses of schools, and certainly not in Washington Township. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beckmeyer. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Toomey, 187 Devon Road. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Donna DeCuffa, who can't be here tonight. My name is Donna DeCuffa. I'm a 25-year Westwood, New Jersey resident. But first and foremost, I am concerned parent of 2 daughters who attend Westwood Regional Junior Senior High School in Washington Township. I was appalled and dismayed to learn that within weeks of holding a dangers of vaping juuling information session at the high school, Washington Township is now proposing that a smoke shop vaping pod store be added to the Washington Township strip mall. It's distressing enough that high school bathrooms are currently populated daily by students, and these students are student athletes, student honor roll students, and student musicians, not stereotypical 1980 movie slackers. And nothing has been done to stop this. The same kids, some of whom live within walking distance to the strip mall, can now simply ask their upperclassmen friends to go down the street and help feed their nicotine fix. The idea that the Washington Township Council members, politicians, could even consider making this poison more accessible and thus aiding and abetting our children's latest dangerous addiction is inconceivable to me as a parent and quite frankly as a resident. Furthermore, why would we want the clientele that such a basis bring into our town, entering into our town? It is disgraceful that the idea of making a profit is trumping common sense and the safety of our kids, and calls into question the character and core values of anyone who supports such a worthless place of business. I beg you not to allow this to happen. Once you encourage any addition in impressionable young people, you are encouraging them to up the ante and up the high to bigger, possibly illegal drugs. Thank you for your time and consideration. Donna DeCuffa.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Hi, I'm Karina Fox. I live at 28 Roberts Court, and I'm a concerned citizen. I attended the planning board meeting, the first meeting where we discussed this with the applicant. And from what I heard at the meeting, there were 2 important things we had to hit. And that was if this establishment was going to be harmful to the town citizens, adults and children, and if it was going to cause a nuisance. And it became kind of apparent to us that there really is not a lot out there about vaping. We've heard so much about cigarettes and alcohol and everything. And this vaping is pretty new. So I wanted to just kind of share some things that I had found about how this is going to be harmful. If this is an establishment where this gentleman is trying to sell to us, this is harmful. And if he wants to sell to other people, then it's going to cause a nuisance. So there are a lot of things that are harmful to the citizens that are in these e-cigarettes. There is a risk of secondhand smoke. My daughter is a dancer at Ambition Dance Academy, and it's 4 doors down from there. I'm imagining there will be people standing around using the gentleman's products. And the risk of secondhand smoke can cause accidental nicotine addiction, mood disorders, and lowering of impulse control. And the nicotine can also affect brain development in young people by changing the way their synapses in their brains are formed. Dr. Brian King, the Deputy Director for Research Translation at the CDC's Office on Smoking and Health, says the lack of regulation, the newness of the products, and the way the industry promotes e-cigarettes as a healthier alternative contributes to the confusion. And I did hear that confusion at the planning board meeting, saying that this was a healthier offering to the citizens when it's actually worse. He had mentioned something about that it was going to help people quit, and some people believe that e-cigarettes may help lower nicotine cravings in those who are trying to quit. However, e-cigarettes are not an FDA-approved quit aid, and there is no conclusive scientific evidence on the effectiveness of e-cigarettes for long-term smoking cessation. It should be noted that there are 7 FDA-approved quit aids that are proven safe and can be effective when used as directed. So we don't need to look at this establishment as something that's going to help us. And lastly, talking about the teen use, which is something that's near and dear to everybody's hearts, NBC News just did a piece about e-cigarettes and cited a University of California, San Francisco study and published in the Journal of Pediatrics. And it showed that teenagers who vape e-cigarettes had higher levels of cancer-causing chemicals than the non-smokers did. And the presence of harmful ingredients in e-cigarette vapor has been established. We can now say that these chemicals are found in the body of human adolescents who use this product. And what's worse, the use of the fruit-flavored products produced significantly higher levels of the metabolites in equinolotrol. So what makes them so appealing to the kids is actually more harmful to the children. And then just to leave everybody with that, those two chemicals, they're highly poisonous compounds which are used widely in manufacture of plastics, adhesives, and synthetic rubber. And the acrolein is toxic to humans following inhalation, oral, or dermal exposure, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. So I'm not quite sure how much more evidence we need that if this is safe for our residents or not. The usage has gone up so much that the latest report on teen smoking shows that 20% of high school students have used at least one tobacco product recently, mostly e-cigarettes. And in 2016, that was only 11%. So in 2 years, it's already caused a problem, and we don't need that problem in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Linda Tracy, 15 Ruby Court in the Township. I work at Westwood High School, and we just had a program within the last 2 months up there for the dangers of vaping. And they handed out these brochures, which was prepared by the Borough of Westwood for the Municipal Alliance Coordinator. And it was copied from MAWA. So towns are preparing information on the dangers. So I will be glad to leave these 2 copies. If you would like more copies, I will get them for you.
The 2 copies.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
Absolutely nothing prepared. My name is Christine Denay. I'm a Westwood resident, 34 Brickell Avenue. I teach in Park Ridge.
Can you just repeat your address again, please?
Yes, 34 Brickell Avenue, Westwood.
Thank you.
I have a sophomore at Westwood High School, and actually 2 sophomores at Westwood High School, and a younger child going into middle school at Brookside. And I teach in Park Ridge. So I have to express my concerns because I'm a special ed teacher. I am aware of several students in Park Ridge High School that have come to me and talked to me because they've gotten expelled because of juuling and vaping and all of this. And these kids are finding liquid marijuana and using these jewels.
Can you pull the microphone closer to you, please?
I'm sorry. They're using these jewels with this liquid marijuana, and it's not like when we were growing up. I never tried drugs before, but it's not the same thing. You can't smell it. You can't notice it. You don't know the difference. My sophomore told me that, Mom, it's like assumed everybody has a jewel in high school. Hey, can I borrow your jewel? It is like the new big up-and-coming thing. And it's not just high school students. It's 6th graders. I have a 6th grader in my school. He's aware of this and has one because he has an older sibling that was able to have access to this. So we're looking at 6th graders, and then it's going to be 5th graders. And it's a concern. These kids in our society are dealing with so many pressures. and so many stresses that we did not experience, or our world was different. And to have this in our community, you know, I'm sorry, Westwood, Washington Township is my community. I spent a lot of time here. And, you know, when your kids are going downtown, hey, you know, I'm going to go down and get sushi down there. I'm going to go down and Dunkin' Donuts. It's safe. You know, there isn't riffraff, excuse the terminology, but you never know who's going to be hanging out at these places. And I think it's something that really has to be thought about and taken into deep consideration. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julia DiVirgilio. I live at
Can you just come closer to the microphone, please?
Say that again.
478 Jackson Ave. I attend Westwood Regional Middle School, and I learned my mom and her friends are fighting to stop this vape shop from opening. I volunteered to give you a middle schooler's perspective as to why Washington Township isn't the place for this business. Vaping is a popular topic among my peers. I personally think it's gross and disgusting. I am a dancer and I get winded from a single performance, but I can't imagine what it would feel like with the effects of vaping in my body. I find it embarrassing that our high school is known as Westweed High School, not only by kids but adults as well. I feel like if this shop ends up opening, it will change the way people look at our community. There are a lot of amazing people and businesses here. I would love to see more stores opening that my friends and I could hang out at. If you could change the ordinances in this town, maybe more appropriate businesses will take interest in opening here. I would love to see maybe an ice cream shop or a place to get smoothies. We just need a place where my friends and I can feel safe when we go to the town center after school.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Hi, Katrina Cassidy, 35 Eugene Court. We've written letters over the last few weeks since the planning board meeting, and we appreciate the council and mayor's attention and responses. Smoke and vape shops do not belong in our town center. We believe that this business poses public health, public safety, and reputational risk to the community. It moves us further away from the towns that we want to emulate. These retailers are better suited on or near highways, and Washington Township is just not an appropriate location. So we need your help in writing ordinances to protect the community against businesses like this going forward. We know you're already working on prohibiting marijuana operations, which is terrific. We'd like to extend that to explicitly include vape, smoke, and head shops, along with marijuana. We also want to ensure that none of these are allowed near residences, schools, places of worship, foot traffic, bike traffic, or other youth-populated areas. As an alternative, we would also welcome adding to the list of prohibited businesses in the existing use regulations ordinance, 24557, I think, which currently lists check cashing establishments, pawn shops, entertainment clubs, discotheques, etc. We think it belongs on the list. Local smoke-free ordinances to prohibit vape, similar to tobacco in public areas. Introducing tobacco retailer licenses to include electronic smoking device retailers. And a moratorium ordinance. This gives towns time to do more research before writing permanent ordinances. It was used in Oradell for cell towers. Not sure if it applies or helps here, but it's worth looking into. Other towns here and across the country are struggling with the issues that come with this booming business, and we can't stop it, but we can take steps to responsibly manage it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kaufman. Would anybody else like to come up and go?
I'm totally unprepared, but sitting here, I'm getting mad. Listening to these valid arguments makes a lot of sense to me. I'm here as a concerned grandmother, Joan Comey, 1165 Washington. My grandchildren are in this town. Let this store go to a highway, not in our town. It doesn't belong in this strip mall. Children hang out there, my granddaughters included. It makes me sick that we even have to take the time tonight to be here to argue this. Listen to the arguments. They're all concerned and good arguments. Why do we even have to try to convince the town that it doesn't belong here? Please, I'm begging you, do not let this store open in this strip mall in our town. Let them go on 17, on Route 4. Not here. It doesn't belong here. Not at all. This is a nice town. Let's keep it that way. Please, as a concerned grandmother, I'm begging you, listen to these arguments that these women came up and told us all about. What bad, I don't even know what vaporing is or whatever that is, but it's bad. All I know, it's I don't even know how to say it. It's bad. I listened to the arguments that they've been presented here, and it makes a lot of sense. Please, I'm begging you, do not let this store open. It doesn't belong here at all.
Thank you.
I'm a grandmother, please. I'm begging you, as a grandmother. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time? Mr. Calamari?
John Calamari, President Road, Washington Township. I'm not here tonight to talk about dispatching or 12-hour shifts. Obviously, the topic for the evening, so to speak, is the concept of the smoke shop here in Washington Township. And while the current application before the planning board, I know, is outside the scope of the council's authority at this time, the one thing I did want to speak about is regarding ordinances or any proposed ordinances or any thoughts of ordinances that the council may have. As you know, I'm the detective. I'm a lieutenant with the Township Police Department. I'm also the department's alcohol beverage control officer. The alcohol beverage control handbook, which I brought, is almost 300 pages of local regulations that a liquor store has to go through in order to get and maintain their liquor license. It obviously creates significant oversight on the part of the police department. It gives us significant leeway to check out these businesses, to check out the people running these businesses. It gives us a lot of authority to go into these businesses, determine how they're being run. It's just, like I said, 300 pages of regulation. I also brought with me the amount of regulation with regard to e-cigarettes and tobacco in New Jersey, and it compromises maybe 15 pages. It's done, the regulation of tobacco and e-cigarettes is primarily done by the State Board of Taxation. However, the New Jersey Board of Health, the actual State Board of Health, specifically has as part of its literature helping communities reduce the effects of tobacco. The New Jersey Department of Health takes the following measures to encourage our communities to prevent the use of tobacco products and their harmful effects. This is done primarily through point of sale, which is obviously the stores. Through the performance of store audits, interventions aim to prescribe stronger local laws directed at retailers in order to restrict minors' access to tobacco products. Unfortunately, when it comes to enforcing the laws with regard to tobacco sales, the laws aren't nearly as strong as they are with regard to liquor and alcohol. If a retailer sells to someone underage or someone under the age of 21 who's not allowed to purchase tobacco, I have the authority as a police officer to petition the council to revoke their license. If a tobacco retailer sells to someone under the age of 21, someone who can't purchase cigarettes or e-cigarettes or any tobacco, I can give them a petty disorderly persons complaint, and the town council would have to petition the Board of Taxation to revoke their license. There's very little local control. If the Board of Taxation chooses to revoke that license, their retailer license, they have the ability to pay a fine that's set by the Board of Taxation to avoid having the license revoked or suspended. Obviously, there's significant significant revenue generating going on with regard to the sale of cigarettes, even at the state level. However, the State Board of Health itself takes steps to empower the municipalities. The State Board suggests things like establishing licensing fees and permitting fees for tobacco retailers, prohibiting sales in proximities of schools, libraries, places of that nature, restrict retailers, certain types of retailers, such as pharmacies and convenience stores, limit the number of hours per day for sales. They suggest limiting the times of day when advertising is permitted, limiting the placement of ads at certain store locations, limiting the placement of ads inside the stores themselves, limiting placement of outdoor ads, banning certain manners of advertising, and establishing what they call content-neutral advertising restrictions, such as less than 15% of their available window space. These are all things that the State Board encourages the local communities to do. Now, I don't know the legality of saying that you cannot open a store of this nature. My point being is there's not nearly enough regulation on these stores or these products at the local level. In my opinion, there's not enough at the state level either. I've heard comparisons. Many people have said, well, there's a liquor store down in the shopping center, so what's the big deal? The big deal is, like I said, and I hold it up, for example, 300 pages of regulation versus 15 pages of regulation. But we can change that at the local level. A while back in 2010, the township was experiencing a problem. We had a problem with underage drinking at private house parties. And there had been 2 hospitalizations of juveniles back then for underage consumption at these parties. The township council back then, I believe the only person, Steve, I think you're the only one who was there, you guys voted unanimously in favor of an ordinance that restricted juvenile consumption on private property. Now, at the time, there was, I recall, there was a lot of concern that an ordinance like that could be subject to abuse. I'm proud to say that since you guys passed that ordinance, and Steve, like I said, you're the last guy left, I'm very proud of the fact that there has not been one incident of that nature in Washington Township, and that was back in 2010. So we're talking about 8 years that ordinance has had a positive effect. Point being, you guys can act. I encourage you to act. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to anyone in the police department. We'll be happy to work with you, do the research, do the legwork to, if we can't prevent it, to at least put in as much regulation and safeguard as possible through the use of the ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Would anyone else like to come up and address the council at this time?
Good evening, Julie Lipnick, 184 Finity Place. Mike, recently it was brought to my attention that Lukoil gas station sells vaping products. So that being said, Mayor, Mr. Poller, does that allow any store that sells tobacco products, does that give them the right to put vaping products on their shelves?
I don't know anything about Lukoil selling any products, and, I don't know what the facts are. very often you hear things, just like the tanks and things were done. I mean, I don't know what they're doing or not doing, so I don't want to tell you that.
No.
That you can't make a general statement that applies across the board without knowing what the facts are.
I grant that.
Okay, so,
But,
you know.
but my question is, if ABC has tobacco products on their shelves, does the current laws allow them to put vaping products in their store? Anybody, for example?
If they're authorized to sell cigarettes, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't looked into it. I'd have to look into it.
Would you please?
Yeah.
I'd be curious myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time? Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close?
Motion?
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Ordinances, adoption, second reading. Ordinance number 18-05. Ordinance providing for the improvement of the intersection of Washington Avenue and Pascack Road in and by the Township of Washington in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, and making an appropriation of $400,000 from the Capital Improvement Fund of the Township, therefore.
So moved.
Resolution 12-214.
Hold on, I have to continue reading.
Finish it?
I gotta
I
give
didn't
you a
see
chance to finish reading.
Quick.
Resolution number 18-214, authorizing second reading and opening of public hearing for ordinance 18-05. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Motion to close public hearing.
No. You just opened the public hearing. Then you
Oh, we did,
can't
yes.
talk.
Would anybody like to come up and address, discuss ordinance 18-05? Seeing nobody, can I have a motion to close public hearing for ordinance 18-05?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Motion to adopt ordinance number 18-05 at second reading by title?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Ordinance number 18-06, bond ordinance appropriating $1.3 million and authorizing the issuance of $1.237 million in bonds or notes of the township for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Washington in the County of Bergen, New Jersey. Resolution number 18-215, authorizing second reading and opening of public hearing for ordinance 18-06. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Would anybody like to discuss or come up and discuss 18-06? Mr. Bruno?
Yeah, I just have a question, please.
Please,
I'm just trying
close the
to,
public hearing first.
Oh,
Yeah, let them public first.
let
and then
me
we'll
close.
discuss.
yeah, I didn't know if there
Can I have a
was...
motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 18-06?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Mr. Bruno?
Yeah, so my question is regarding the funding. Have we determined whether we're going to do long-term bonds or short-term notes, or what the interest rates are, which the best way to finance this once we end up using the money for various projects?
No, our CFO was on vacation for the 2 weeks in between the meetings. And we, as I mentioned last time, we have until August to make the decision, because that's when the bonds and bans are up for, not the bonds, but the bans are up for renewal. So I believe that we're going to extend or request that Ms. Maroney attend a council meeting to address that issue.
So we won't bond or ban until we understand which way we're going?
Yes, and in fact, we can't do anything until 20 days after the publication of the ordinance, assuming it's going to pass tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
So just, wait, So, Bob, just to be clear, if we do work under these ordinances, it's potentially going to be funded by a ban. The question of permanent bonding is, and a question that Ashley will be asked to join us and address.
Yes.
And our bans, excuse me, our current bans roll over in August, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Actually, if you bear with me, I did reach out to Mr. Beinfeld to get us some sense of what the rates were in the current market conditions, and let me see if I can find his email response. Bear with me. I didn't turn on my computer before because I didn't want to disrupt the public session.
I mean, that's okay for me.
Okay.
I just
Well,
want to clarify.
we can discuss it if you want during the conference session. I can relate to you the information he gave me. He did give me a sense of what the current market conditions are.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Cumming, anything?
No
Motion to adopt ordinance number 18-06 at second reading by title. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Consent agenda. All of the following items have been determined to have the unanimous consent of council and be enacted in one motion. Should any item require independent consideration, any council member may have such item removed from the consent agenda. Resolution 18-216, authorized refund for 8 summer recreation excursions 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Do I have a motion to go adjourn to the conference agenda, gentlemen?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes.
Mr. President, may I make a suggestion?
Yes,
If it's
Mr. Bruno.
okay? I mean, there's a lot of folks here, obviously, for a certain reason and a certain cause. And we have under the council section B, number 4, which is the retail marijuana stores.
If you'd like to make a motion to go to that first, I
If we can,
would
because, I
entertain that,
mean,
Mr. Bruno.
this is something that was put out there in January, and I believe we had some time to come up with some sort of resolution before April 25th, prior to this gentleman applying. So maybe we can just address that for the folks that are here, because I think it all pertains to the same situation.
Can I have a motion to suspend the rules and move to council ordinances and legislation B4?
So moved.
Mr. Bruno, would you like to second that?
Second?
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. So on our ordinances and legislation, gentlemen, we have retail marijuana stores, a draft to review. We had discussed the draft ordinance. Mr. Poller has prepared a draft ordinance. I had some questions, Mr. Poller. Can we add all public properties to that list?
Public properties. Well, I was going to say, listening to Mr. Calamari, I was going to say add public libraries.
Well, the library.
Yeah, I was definitely going to add that
Well,
one.
I want to
Public
include.
use
I want
lands.
to include any land owned by the Township of Washington.
Okay, any land owned, okay.
Because even our
yeah.
little pocket properties that we have all over town, you can go there and have a picnic. So therefore, I wouldn't want anybody
Right.
vaping on those
Right.
lots.
This is not vaping, this is
And marijuana, excuse me.
This is,
Yeah.
it's, okay, you can add it.
That pretty much eliminates the whole town, because we have those pockets
We have those
everywhere.
towns everywhere. There's
They're
30 of them,
everywhere.
so they're everywhere. So that would, so on any property owned by the Township of Washington would, I think, covers within a quarter mile, yeah. Anything else, Mr. Bruno? Mr. Ullman?
How does this impact existing retailers and existing sales? Not so much marijuana per se, but the ordinance speaks to marijuana-related products or paraphernalia is prohibited. So if you go into any number of retailers today, there's paraphernalia that is available that's marijuana-related. You get rolling papers in 3 or 4 establishments. There are hookahs available that could be used to smoke marijuana. So how would this impact existing retailers and their ability to continue to sell those products?
I think it would have to be tested. It would have to be tested to see how that would be enforced. I mean, I can't tell you it's going to absolutely bar them. It may bar them, but this is all a new area. I mean, marijuana itself obviously not legal right now. Marijuana-related products and paraphernalia was the natural inclusion with the ordinance and was asked for, and I think that as it relates to existing stores or operations that sell it, it's going to have to be on a case-by-case basis to see what the enforcement turns out to be.
It's going to be a test case.
I mean, I don't think that the concern of worrying about whether it's enforceable should prevent you from putting the wording in. I mean, the absolute worst thing that'll happen is that if something is issued or summons is issued and it's challenged and a court decides that it should not be enforced, when the court can challenge it. I mean, there are plenty of ordinances that are put out there that are not challenged. I think Mr. Calamari was mentioning a thing about the underage drinking, that kind of a thing. So again, there's no reason to make the determination that there might be a challenge and therefore don't put it in there. It's better off being put in there. And that's true about just any kind of conduct, even dog barking. It might be enforceable in a situation, or it might be unconstitutionally applied in another situation. So you don't know. But I would say it makes sense to put it in.
So if we were to approve this ordinance for marijuana and if we were to expand it into vape shops or whatever, how does this impact when someone comes in front of the planning board? Does this override everything? I mean,
I don't want to comment on that aspect of it because there's a pending application before the planning board, and it would be improper, prejudicial, whatever you want to call it, to comment on anything to do with the implication of that store or that application or that use at this point.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't looking at the store specifically. I was looking at the overall impact, whether or not, let's say the guy wasn't applying for the store.
Right.
And we did this, and it came before a planning board. Does the planning board say, well, here's the ordinance, sorry, we can't do anything?
Well, I mean, generally, as a general proposition, ordinances govern. I mean, if there's a...
That's my question.
Yeah,
so this would govern it.
If there's a prohibited use, like the woman delineated some uses that are, a list of things that are prohibited. If it's a prohibited use and it's not absolutely allowed by law, and you couldn't outlaw it, and there are some of those, but it would be a prohibited use. It's a power that the municipality does have, but I don't want to comment on the existing application.
No, I understand. I just want to know if it would override the planning
But
board.
let me just say this, the ordinance that you asked for and what you got deals with marijuana. It doesn't deal with anything to do with vaping.
Correct. At this point.
At this point, you can expand.
I'd like to entertain another thing, that we sit down with Officer Calamari and maybe tweak it and see what we can add to it to make their lives easier, to enforce what we need enforced, and keep being proactive with the police department in order to do that. That's I don't know if anybody agrees with that suggestion, but that's what I'd be in favor of. Add the township properties to it, and then possibly keep building on this ordinance to add further things in the future when we can.
Yeah, I'll work with John, we can see what we come up with. Make it,
It's a good start. It's a good start, Ken, but I think we need their input to make it a perfect start.
So, Mike, I'm sorry, when you say township properties?
Yes.
What are you referring to?
Any property that the Township of Washington owns, the 30 pocket parks that we own all around town.
But this wouldn't have anything...
It would be the
but we
public
don't
library, it would be this building.
Understand.
It would be Memorial Field, it would be Clark, it would be Sherry, it would be Kennedy, it would be and those little properties that we own, like on the corner of what, Walnut, right? We own one over there.
One on the corner of
On
Lincoln
yeah,
and
they're all over.
Mountain.
So this
One on
way,
Monroe.
The shopping center we don't own, so.
oh, we own the library behind
Yeah.
it,
No, I
and we
understand
own,
that.
and we own those large woods behind the
The woods.
library, so those woods would give us even more further coverage, because we own all those woods.
So I guess, is this something that we can, forget the quarter of a mile for a minute, just let me play devil's advocate? Could we just say we don't want it, period?
No.
I
Okay.
think that's a problem if something is legalized totally and you're not exercising any zoning power or judgment as to why you're limiting the use of it, and you decide that even though the state says it's okay, you decide not okay, that could present a problem. So I think the safer route is regulatory.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. The quarter mile sets a standard that we're not saying no to the product, but we're saying no to the usage of the product within a quarter mile. And that's what makes it legal for us to do. Anything else, Mr. Cumming, you have anything to add?
I'm with you 100%.
Thank you. Mr. Casio?
No?
So if we can meet with the chief and Mr. Calamari in the next few days, and we'll have this presented to the next packet, so it can be, first reading could be at the next meeting if everybody's okay with that.
And what's the scope that you plan to cast? How big of a prohibition on what activities or what products are you contemplating?
Well, we have the marijuana and the paraphernalia in there now, and
Let's
we
look
need
for
to,
suggestions to the
we're gonna
police
sit down with the
department.
police department, and we'll bring more back, Mr. Ullman.
Okay.
I want to cast the net as large as possible, so
So can we get examples? I mean, I know a lot of the folks said that there are other towns that have thrown this out there. I mean, I think we need to...
Hasbrook Heights has passed one online, it's readily.
we need to be as thorough as possible is what I'm saying, rather than try and come back and add stuff and amend it and just go for the kill, I guess.
That's where we got to start from.
Okay.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Let's go back to the top.
We go back to the top now, to the project tracker. So, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, that was the only item that was regarded to the retail marijuana store ordinance. There is nothing else on here that pertains to that. So, if you'd like to stay and join us, have a good night. Thank you. Even the recorders.
Not so easy.
No, I did not.
Well, next time we're collecting $1 at the door, we'll put a dent in it.
It's gotta be in there then.
Okay.
It's on the back page. Got nervous.
It's because you're double-siding everything and people don't realize, because you're double-siding.
We turn everything over, so...
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna keep this. No, I'm gonna keep this. Don't you worry about it.
I made a note to add mine back in, but that's fine. I got nervous. I said,
It was there, it just took a while to find it. It just took me a while to find my copy.
All right, gentlemen, on the, moving along to current business, under administration, we have the project tracker. Mrs. Grove distributed it right before the meeting started, so we have a copy of this meeting project tracker.
Just so you know, as in the past, I tried to do new info in bold. Of course, that sometimes interferes if the headings are in bold, but I added in all the projects that are on part of the current capital. And then you'll see, as far as the capital, there's not so much that is really started yet because we have to wait for the funding to be put in place. Other than we are getting the tax window improvements are going to be done on Wednesday, which the staff is happy to know. And then if you see on the current fund section, which is more of the things that are impacted in the current fund budget, there's a lot in the personnel section. We hired, happy to say we've hired 2 new employees, one for the as a violations clerk and one as a technical assistant, so we have a second chair there to relieve some of the pressure. It's long overdue. And then we have some other, we're going to have a vacancy at the end of the month. The code enforcement official has resigned, effective the end of the month, so we'll have to advertise for that. And I just, the ad for the full-time CFO is now on the league website.
Who's the CFO is on the website?
Yes. just
Mr.
as of
Mazak
today.
has resigned.
He resigned?
Just in that one position, not as zoning officer.
He resigned in what position?
Code enforcement official. He wore 2 hats. He's remaining on as zoning officer.
Anything else, Mary?
No, unless you have questions.
The flooring has been ordered, it says?
Oh, that's old news. There's no update because that was scheduled last time. That's
Okay, no, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's all the same information as last go around. I haven't heard one way or the other that those dates are no good.
Okay.
I have a question.
Any questions on?
Is there a, are we paying a fee to Matt as the QPA?
Yes.
And what is that fee, 1? And 2, what does the QPA, is that a required position?
No, it is not, but it does enable us to buy things without going out to bid. If we are, it allows you to do more bidding more buying without bidding, and buying without securing 2 quotes. For instance, with a QPA, your bid threshold is $40,000 as opposed to $17,500. And there's a quote threshold written into the state law that says, and that's derived from your bid threshold. So when you have a $40,000 bid threshold, your quote threshold is $6,000. When you have a $17,500 bid threshold, your quote threshold is $26,250, I believe it is. So it makes it harder for the departments to acquire the goods and services they need without that.
And is his stamp on a flat basis, or is it based on the...
An hourly.
Is he budgeted?
There's money in the room because Christina is not working her full hours, and she was budgeted at her full hours. So, I'm anticipating that I'm going to pass it on June 13th. So, and I don't know how long it's going to take for them. I don't anticipate having to reach out to him that often. I did reach out to him with what happened with the fire department Scott bottles, and he was in line with what I thought, and he just reaffirmed it. We don't have to have it, but it would make, as it is,
Life easier.
the departments get frustrated sometimes with the steps they have to go through. It would be harder if there was not a QPA.
Anything else, John?
On the tracker?
Yes, on the tracker, Mr.
Yeah, so can we just go to the first one? We still don't know which roads we're going to be looking at to pave?
An email was sent to you on Friday. Yes, right, Sue? When did that email go to everybody?
Yeah, I think it was Friday. I think that's when I saw
I believe last Thursday or Friday,
Sure.
the council was emailed an email with the list of roads for the 2018 program.
Who'd it come from?
Came from Mr. Azzolino. Oh, it came from Sue from Mr. Azzolino. Right, you copied my email to everybody.
I think it did.
Yeah. Came from Sue.
Actually, Sue, if you could send that to me, because I didn't receive it. I don't think so.
So we have
Send it
that,
to me too, Sue, please? I wasn't here, so I don't know if I got
the
it.
Robinwood DOT grant, and you explained in detail about what we can and can't do. Would it be possible to propose that we pave the entire Robinwood, and would Suez can they either pay or give us a credit for that and pave other streets? Because it seems like we have a grant for Robinwood.
But not the entire length of Robinwood and Mr. Ullman.
Well, it's for a good, what's left, I mean, after Suez does their work, we're barely getting any use out of the grant. So would we benefit maximizing the grant and asking Suez to pave another street? I mean, you know.
It couldn't hurt to ask, but I don't know that that would happen, because I've been in meetings when they've been asked. They resist very much doing curb to curb, and they acquiesce. I don't know that we could ask them. I could ask Mr. Azzolina, because
Well, when we passed their approval, we said it had to be curb to curb. That was one of the constituents.
I understand that, but normally, under normal circumstances, I don't know that that's required. So I hear what you're saying, and I can certainly ask Mr. Azzolina to give it a try.
I mean, I live on Clark, and there are two large patches that are failing, multi-feet, 20 feet, 30 feet long, 10 feet wide. That was a result of a Suez water main break. And that hasn't been resolved. It hasn't been repaired. The patch is failing. Have them come and do that. It's a couple of 100 feet, and let us maximize the Robinwood. And I'm just wondering, can we?
Well, they should come back and fix yours if it's failing, because it's under their, it's their responsibility.
Yes, but it's failed multiple times. They've repaired it multiple times. It's gotten bigger multiple times. So, that's a whole nother discussion. But, if they can, or if we can, bargain or barter, why not maximize the DOT grant and see if Suez will, go to another locale for that amount of paving.
Well, one other thing on the DOT grant. I know that, well, actually, I don't know that we can change it. I was going to say that I believe that you've talked to Mr. Azzolino, or Mr. Azzolino has talked about doing milling process at a greater depth than Mr. Statiel did. We may, in fact, then use more cost if it costs more in terms of the labor to do that, and then the extra asphalt to fill that extra inch of that's been milled. So I don't know that there's going to be a ton of money floating around in excess, but it certainly can't hurt to try. Okay. But Mr. Ullman, I would also ask you, if you would like, if you do send me an email identifying the problems you just talked about, I have a contact at Suez. One of the gentlemen who's fairly high up has been very cooperative anytime we've asked them to do things. I mean, and for instance, there was an issue at the intersection of Pascack Road and it's the one we paved. It was added.
Amherst?
Amherst, yes, where they were repeatedly saying, not us, not us, not us. And when this guy got it, it was on his radar. He had the right people go out and he said, yeah, it is us.
Okay.
And they fixed it. So if you forward that to me, I'll try to get him involved with assessing that situation.
Certainly.
But also to answer your question, I spoke to Paul about that specifically, and he said Suez seldom, if ever, does that. The area they allocate is the area they allocate, and it's probably not going to happen, but I'll certainly have him make the inquiry.
Okay, thank you.
Woodfield will be done soon?
What do you mean? No, nothing's been, it has to all go out to bid. Specs have to be drawn up.
Didn't we get a grant for Woodfield?
Yes, but nonetheless,
Still have to-
regardless of the source of funding, when you're spending money over $40,000 on any given project or type of work, paving, you have to go out to bid. I've been waiting on specifications from Mr. Azzalina. He's got a lot on his plate because you have a very aggressive program to make things better in the town. So, you know, if at the mayor's direction or council, you know, you want me to tell them to prioritize certain things over others, I would think the roads would be at the highest end because we need to get in the queue and not get beat out by other towns that are bidding. So, in the past, we've had good luck because we've been ahead of the game. So hopefully by the next meeting, you'll be authorizing me to advertise for bids.
Yeah, I mean, the guys were out there today, you know, filling up potholes with I guess we buy bags of stuff. I don't even know what it was, but
Yes,
I mean, it just seems like Woodfield, we've been talking about this for probably 2 years now. And now we're spending money, not that it's big money to fix the potholes, I get it. So I'm just curious as to when we're gonna get this done. So we're waiting for the engineer to come back with all the streets now?
Maybe Mr.,
Yes,
I know
that was
no,
in the
it needs-
email.
You need specifications. You need to go out to bid. You have to say what you want. X tons, you know, how many inches of milling, all the different parts of the contract that you need the contractor to perform. So unless and then I can have you authorize me to advertise for bids, but I can't advertise until I have the specifications. So by the next meeting, I'm optimistic that we'll be ready to advertise on all of these capital projects. That may be optimistic, but you know,
Okay.
it's something to shoot for.
Mr. Azzalino was supposed to, Mr. Azzalino, the mayor had invited Mr. Azzalino here tonight, but because of a large crowd we knew we were going to have, pushed it off.
Yes, correct.
But hadn't Chris Statiel done specifications already 2 years ago?
No, you do it for each project.
It's
He
road by
does-
road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
know,
also,
but that
too-
was a big project that we had 2 years ago.
We
We never
both-
did any specs?
Well, no, you don't do your specs because what if you didn't get the grant? You wouldn't do the specs until you know you're going to do the project. Otherwise, it would be waste of money. And I know Mr. Statiel had templates set up for this. I'm sure Mr. Azzalina does. It's a matter of plugging things in. I'm sure he wants to do it. In my short few months dealing with him, he's very thorough and precise, and he likes to get it right. So I'm sure that's what he's doing.
And also, one thing he asked me, Marianne, I don't know if you know, is there a road co-op this year? And if so, are we joining it, not joining it?
He recommended that we not join it.
Okay, so there is one?
Yes,
And do
and
we
he-
have to make a motion or resolution to not join it, or?
Mr.
I
Azzalina
know
said, don't do it, and I told the group that we weren't
Yeah, I
part
know
of it.
in previous years, we had to do something to opt out of the...
No, you don't have to
No,
opt
just,
out. You have to opt in.
My mistake.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
my
decided not
mistake.
to go.
No, but Paul
Okay.
actually had said, I don't think we should do the co-op.
Okay.
That was like a couple months ago.
Oh, okay.
Nothing.
Moving on.
That's
One
YouTube.
second, Mike.
Yes.
Mary Ann and Pete, if we have any money left over this capital funding, are we still anticipating a wood chipper? I didn't see it anywhere, but, you know, we've had a ton of trees come down lately.
Yes, we
and,
have.
you know, it really destroys the garbage trucks crunching that stuff up. And I think a wood chipper, again, it's been brought to, we've talked about it numerous times about
Yeah.
getting one. Can we put that on the radar if we have funds available?
We had a meeting after the storm last
Right.
week, and we spoke about it, that it's happening more and more frequently. We told the DMF, go out and get estimates for bigger chainsaws so they can deal with bigger limbs and branches. The subject of a chipper is a sensitive one because of the nature of the equipment, the training that's required. They're going to look into it, but they also want to look into if we can get priority service from a tree company that has their own chipper or chippers that can do the town, where their employees stay regularly trained on that equipment as opposed to our guys who, would use it sporadically depending on storms and like that. And so that they're investigating both avenues. As far as the funding, I'm not sure about yet,
Right.
but I asked them to at least look into
Other
that.
municipalities have them.
Yeah.
We don't, and, lately, with these storms, and it's really taking a toll on the equipment.
Correct.
It's
And-
not
and-
designed for that.
And I can look into, because we do have reserves in the way of clean communities, and that perhaps if I can figure out that it would fit into that, I could talk
Okay.
to the mayor about that.
Again, something to
Again,
keep on the
obviously,
radar.
they've got concerns about the operation of it.
We budgeted tree cutting somewhere, so there is money in the budget.
Well, tree cutting is for a private company to come in, Mr. Burrow, and cut down trees.
I agree, but we're not going to get, our crew's not going to get all this done unless you get somebody in, that's what I'm saying. That's why we put the money into budget.
We've been spending money on outside tree companies.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had a lot of trees. Woodfield, they have 3 of them across Woodfield the other night, on Tuesday. Items 3 and 4, fire.
Going back to Woodfield, that fence, that was our fence that got destroyed?
No, that's the lakes.
The lakes, actually, the lake forwarded the pictures. I was kind of surprised because I thought I heard somebody tell me that there was no damage, but there apparently was. So once they get it, the debris removed, we can assess the situation and determine whether we go through JIF or their insurance, talks to our insurance, we have to figure it out.
Why do we have to figure it out?
It's our tree. It's our tree that fell.
Yeah, but in the state of New Jersey, it's where the tree falls, whether it's a municipal tree or it's their problem, not ours.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It just became to my attention. I was going to reach out to Mr. Pollard to see what happens. I know it's a sensitive subject with the Lake Association regarding their fencing, and if we have a right to say it's not our responsibility, then we'll say that.
Mr. Pollard, am I correct in what I just said? Or not in that situation?
Let's not address that right now.
All right. Moving on, Firehouse Progress Report, Intersection Progress Report. Mr. Mayor, the Firehouse Progress Report?
I'm happy to say that the fire department is in talks with the ambulance corps about moving locations, so they have gotten that far, and they expect to have an answer to us within the next 30 days, whether that's something that can be agreed on or not. And then right after that, either the fire department or both agencies would like to come before the council with the architect and give all the pertinent information and do a presentation.
At that time, he'll have cost estimates.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Should we see that before? I mean, it sounds like they're making the decision. I mean, shouldn't we see what the plans are, what the expectation is? Or are we going to see it the first time that they've seen that?
No, I don't believe you'll see it the first time, but again, in their talks, they're still talking about adjusting the plans that were thrown out. They were very preliminary plans, and then once they make the decision as to if it's going to be just the fire or fire and ambulance, then the architect will go forward with a more definitive plan that then would get shared with the council as soon as we get it, and then shortly thereafter they would do their presentation.
Peter, if I might?
Yes.
Mr. DeSena, may I ask? Are we taking the position, build whatever they want, and we'll figure out what the money costs, or are they provided with a budget? No,
No,
because
we are not.
I've seen architects with public projects not get direction, and then
That is not the case.
they build the Taj Mahal, and, they propose the Taj Mahal.
Well, that's my question. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like there's a lot of dialogue with the end parties, which I think is great. They're going to explain what they perceive as their needs and their wants, but, where is the input from the council other than to say, there's funding for a study?
Mr.
I'm sorry.
You go. Mr. Ullman, the architect has done a needs analysis to see what we need, whether it's fire alone or fire and ambulance. And right now, there's a whole bunch of options on the table. None of them are the Taj Mahal. I would definitely say none of them are. They're all taking cost and usage into account to benefit the safety of both our ambulance corps and our fire department. And once that decision's been made, he will be able to refine the 4 different options that will be presented to the mayor and council and
With cost options.
With cost options, and then we'll review those before it's done in the public, if that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor.
You took the words out of my mouth, Mike.
Does that answer your question a little bit better, Mr. Holman, or?
Sure, yes, thank you.
The Red House, Mr. Mayor?
Let me just say, something is happening on it that I'd rather not discuss in public at this time, but there is something happening that by next meeting, or even sooner, I can email you with a status.
Commuter parking?
Number 4?
Oh, intersection. The intersection is still at the county. We have not received any updates yet. I'll probably reach out to Mrs. Dargis at the end of this week to see where we stand and try to get a more definitive date of when we should have the preliminary plans back. If that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course, yeah.
Mrs. Woodkowski, can we move to commuter parking now? Am I back on track?
You are back on track.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Commuter parking, if we can, I'd like to add it to closed. I do have an update, but it's not ready for the public just yet.
That is fine.
Well, I think it's great, it's not ready, but how are we bringing it behind closed doors?
Still part of the negotiation for what we are doing.
No, understood. I guess my question is, there are exclusions or reasons to go behind closed doors, which I understand. Having a discussion about commuter parking, I don't think is one of those. So what's the basis of the exclusion?
I don't know what the mayor has in mind, but the commuter parking per se, you're right, it should be in public. But if you're talking about tactics, negotiations, strategies, land implications and acquisitions, a whole bunch of a variety of things can be. I'm not saying, because I don't know what the situation is in terms of that could be in closed session. There are some.
I mean, I'm just concerned that.
I'm mindful of that also, and I have great respect for the public to know everything, but I don't believe we're at that juncture just yet.
Okay.
Quest, Mr. Pollard? Any update on Quest?
I haven't heard from.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. Labor attorney recommendations, Mr. Pollard?
Okay, so I do have somebody. I did want to ask one question. Mr. Bruno, you said you had somebody who you wanted me to consider, so who was that?
What's his name?
Yeah.
Good question. His first name is Matt. I'm not sure what his last name is.
Giacobbe, probably.
So I'd have to get you the name.
Is that Matt Giacobbe, I bet?
It could be.
He does that type of work.
Yeah.
With Cleary.
I spoke to him once or twice, but I don't have an email or anything. I just have a number. It says Matt, so that's probably his name. Do you have recommendations for us, Mr. Paula?
Yeah, I do have who I would select. And I've done a fair amount of, well, I've been involved in the area, so I know, but I also done a fair amount of talking to people. And the person I think would be the most suitable is Raymond Wiss. Ray Wiss has been involved in labor law for many, many years. As a matter of fact, he and I were co-counsel on the case before the Supreme Court that essentially overturned the police arbitration law. He had Hillsdale, I had Washington Township. We were in the Supreme Court together. I've conferred with him in that case and worked with him. He's been labor counsel to Borough of Allendale, Edgewater, Elmwood Park, Englewood Cliffs, Glen Rock, Hackensack, Haledon, Harrington Park, Haworth, Hillsdale, Hohokus, Mawa, Midland Park, New Milford, North Arlington, Oradell, Paramus, Park Ridge, Ridgefield. I'll give it to you. Saddlebrook, Upper Saddle River, Westwood, and Wyckoff.
Anyone else?
Who didn't he do?
Would have been quicker to say who he didn't do.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a very well-known and respected labor attorney, certainly somebody I
Mr.
can
Bruno, we'll get a copy from Mr. Pollard.
Yeah, that's fine. Are you familiar with Matt, what's his name, Marion?
Jacoby. I know who he is.
I mean, his background seems to be just as impressive from when I spoke to him. So I'll send you his number.
Sure.
And we'll get a copy from Mr. Poller of Mr. Wiss's resume, and
If
we'll
I-
PDF it and send it to everybody.
If I might add, I've actually worked with Mr. Wiss in PBA negotiations with this local bargaining unit, and he's very, very good to work with, excellent. And in fact, at that time, we considered the other gentleman that I just said, and Mr. Wiss was chosen, but you know, every
Thank you.
town's different.
Okay. Municipal complex repairs, the doors are scheduled, the paint is scheduled, and the only issue we have remaining was employee security. Mr. Ullman had brought it up. The chief is reviewing his notes, and will have an update back to us shortly, correct, Mr. Calamari?
Correct.
So we'll have a report back from the chief on his needs for employee security.
That was the answer 2 weeks ago. Is there a problem finding the letter?
There is a letter.
I do not want to speak for the chief, Mr. Calamari.
Yeah, I don't
add
want
it?
to either. All I can say is, you know, he's
promised to see
going
what-
back through emails and letters to find what it was, to use that as a basis to bring it current, because I think it goes back, you know, at least...
Many years.
Yeah.
No disrespect intended. This is what happened during the budget process that caused us problems and confusion.
Yes, he's diligently reviewing his notes to figure it out, and
One hopes so.
So, I'm sorry, what is he trying to figure out?
the
recommendation?
Mr. Ullman had asked what employee security repairs were needed to be made, and a request was made by the mayor to the chief, and we're awaiting a response back from him.
So just so we all understand, without getting into it, this was a letter that was written last year, and I believe from I believe it was Captain Hackbarth and Lieutenant Skinner did a review, and there's a letter, a memo that went out that we all have. So we don't have it, or we are looking for it?
No, nobody said, like we said, we're not speaking for the chief on what he has and doesn't have. He's reviewing it, and will have an answer to us for the next meeting.
And the couple of people you just mentioned, just for timing, had vacation time both the past couple of weeks, so.
So are we getting a new plan? I'm just trying to understand. It was documented, written down, and now we're waiting for a new plan?
No, well, he just wants to use that one and then see, does it need any updating from when it was presented last year? Because things change, obviously, times change.
The next thing, Mr. Bruno, senior parking, you had put on?
Yeah, so the Golden Seniors, they have meetings, I think, 2 Wednesdays a month, or maybe more. And the issue that was brought to my attention was that they just don't have ample parking. And the question is, during these 2 Wednesdays, I think it is it possible for employees to shift their cars on the street so they can get the lot, because they apparently are parking quite a distance and have quite a walk. They might even be parking in the lot across the street and coming uphill. So the question is there anything we can do to help on these 2 days to shift parking around?
I can certainly ask the employees if they will move. For a long-term solution, we are working on a cut-through to the Oritani parking lot that the employees would park there on those days to free up the parking lot and street spots. Mr. Lynch was kind enough to allow us to use his parking lot for those couple days a month, and Mr. Azzolina has drawn up a preliminary plan for a cut-through just to put a sidewalk in between the end of Hudson Ave and the Oritani parking lot.
We had a plan doing that back in like 2011. I don't know if we ever actually did the actual schematic of it.
I don't know.
We had talked about it prior to you being on the council.
I remember it being a topic, and he's probably 90% done with it, so to try and look it up at this point.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't remember what happened to it, but there was talk of doing that.
Correct.
Before.
Yeah, it wasn't a new idea to him when he heard it.
Right. So, all right, good, excellent.
Health insurance stipend, Mr. Calamari?
Yes, it was brought to my attention that quite a few towns around us give their employees who are eligible for health insurance but don't need it because they're covered under a spouse an annual stipend to try and attract their employees, keep them, and since we do not currently offer that, it contributes to our revolving door of employees because they are allowed to give up to $5,000 a year for people who don't actually need the health insurance, but they must be covered under a spouse's plan. So I just want the council to be mindful of that, maybe for next year's budget talks. That's something we might want to consider putting into next year's budget, just to keep good, talented people working here and not losing them to other towns because of, a better benefit package.
So this is a great idea, and I think, is it possible to informally survey staff to see if it's something they would entertain? Because it's, I think it's a great incentive.
Let me say, I had Joy do something like that. There are 4 people right now who would qualify under it. I honestly don't know, is there any legal issues with us polling the staff to see how many would be interested in that, Ken?
No.
No? Okay. All right, so I'll send out an email to everyone asking what impact it might have to the town.
Actually, just so you know, there's a nuance in there. It's up to $5,000. It's 25% of the savings by them not having the insurance. On the other hand, it opens it up to people who aren't taking insurance could then qualify for the stipend. So that's
Yeah.
the other hand of it,
I
too.
agree with you. I mean, I have this...
Well, no, I'm not saying it. I'm just giving you information.
Okay, well, I hear you then. So I have this in my place of business also, and it's a very sticky situation in terms of what you give and how much and who's got what plan. And I've always basically steered away from it.
Okay. Anything else on health insurance stipend, gentlemen? Number 12, the OEM plan.
Yeah, I mean, this was...
Mr. Bruno,
I guess a couple of months ago, I had asked if we could get some kind of 800 numbers or some sort of communication for residents during these situations, who to call, or could there be reverse calls or something on the website?
Well, my understanding is, albeit very generic, is that's not part of an OEM plan. An OEM plan is something that's very specific for certain emergencies that may take place in town, not necessarily for the type of storm we had last week. The OEM plan would not be activated for that, but I can talk to emergency services to see if the few things you just brought up, if they are in favor of doing that, but I just want to make sure everyone understands.
I think that was my plan.
It's not part of an OEM plan.
It must be a misnomer then. So my plan was what I had written down months ago, so that's, yeah, if you can do that, that would be great.
Sure.
Mr. Bruno, I think to add, I guess what you're asking for is, if you go on Public Services website and you register your home and your phone number, they will text, call, email.
I get that.
I understand. So all residents in their monthly bill can sign up for this because everybody in Washington Township is a public service.
We're signed up.
Yeah. So it's not something the police department could do or the OEM plan could do. It's
I
something
know.
that residents have to do.
Yeah, so we all
because you
signed
could
up.
you could report your own outage whether you have power or not.
Agreed.
It's a great tool they've put out. It tells you how many people in Washington Township are without power. It'll tell you when your power might come back on if you're out of power. It's a
Right.
pretty powerful...
So I do that, not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's more information that I'd like to have in terms of up-to-date stuff, because when they text and say your power's back on and 5 hours later it's not accurate. So I'm trying to see what the most accurate is and how people other than myself could be informed too. So that's all my intention was.
Okay. Moving on to council, other options, other forms of government, Mr. Bruno. Anything to add to that tonight?
No, I think we're done.
I think we're done with that, okay. Community Development Committee Representative, Sue?
I spoke to Mary Ann, that's coming up next month, right, Mary Ann, that we need to have.
July
representatives?
1 is the new year.
So July, sometime in June, there's got to be representatives, and I know the mayor was on it last year, and I believe Steve was on
I'll
it,
do it.
so just,
On that note, Steve, you know there's a meeting on Wednesday night where we're voting, and we've got an application. It's at 6 o'clock.
Well, I guess I'm canceling patience and going.
well, just for
Did you
consideration,
get
if
the
someone
letter?
else would
No, I
like
didn't
to,
get
you
the
know,
letter.
next month,
But
I'll
I'll
put
be-
it back on, and then we'll have a resolution appointing.
And all Japan?
Yeah. I'll get a copy of the letter before I leave for you.
No problem.
Steve, you also need a deputy for that position, right? Or
Mhm.
elected.
Yeah, yeah,
Something
so-
for the other councilmen to think about.
We'll
If
discuss
anyone
that.
wants to take my place, they can.
Mr. Bruno, you have item number 3.
Oh, one second, does anyone want it?
Does anybody want to be Deputy Community Development Committee Representative? Does anybody have any interest?
I don't
Mr.
think it's
Cumming?
deputy, it's an alternate.
Alternate.
Alternate. Oh, somebody said Deputy.
I did.
Deputy
Right term.
I'm not sure. Let me think about it.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, please. Because I'm kind of involved with the audits right now, the energy
Okay.
audits.
Mr. Bruno, moving to item number 3 you put on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm just questioning, if there is non-consent, do the duties and responsibilities and the decisions stay the same even though there was non-consent? I know it's a holdover position, not just Director of Law, but all the other ones. So does anything change or everything just stays as is?
Stays.
What's that?
Stays.
That's what I assumed.
Anything else on that, Mr. Bruno?
No, that's fine.
The next item is the appeal denial of permit letter.
In your packet.
It's in our packet.
It's the fence on, what was it, Times Square or something? I think it's Times.
Doesn't this go to the zoning board of adjustment?
Yeah,
He
really.
was told he had to come back here for.
Yeah, I was going to talk about this.
Okay.
I mean, for the
talk
first.
about it?
It's
yeah.
from,
No.
It's from Mr. Buckner,
Yeah,
correct?
let me just kind of go over
Why-
this
why
area.
is it
So
coming to us?
generally speaking, determinations of the zoning officer is something that is an appeal from that goes to the Board of Adjustment, doesn't go to the council, okay? That's when there is an interpretation of the zoning ordinance, things of that nature. All sorts of interpretations by that official go to the zoning board. So, now I don't know why somebody said that they should come here, but maybe it was because it was the interpretation of the fence being on somebody else's property. I mean, I don't know. You know, basically, the fence that this person has, I guess, actually encroaches on municipal property, from what I can gather of
That's
the-
correct.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I don't think it's a good policy at all to give people rights to have encroachments onto municipal property. I think it's a bad precedent, and it does raise some issues. I also have another issue, as I was reading through it, that concerned me, and that was that apparently this fence has been there for 18 years. Okay, so there's a body of law dealing with adverse possession.
But you can't take adverse possession of municipal property, can you?
Read Devens versus Pagoda, and you can.
Well, you can.
Yeah, so generally, the law had been thought to be, and goes back to the Crown, that you can't take property from the Crown, that kind of stuff. But there was a case before the New Jersey Supreme Court, Devens versus Pagoda, where adverse possession was applied against a municipality on I think it was a fenced-in area that was not used for public use. Now, property as public use is one thing, they wouldn't impose it there, but this one, there wasn't public use, and this is just a plain right-of-way. So I'm concerned about the fact that that fence is actually even there.
Because both neighbors have it on.
Yeah,
public.
so I feel that some notice should be going out to these people that they're approaching, and to assert our rights against. I mean, I don't want to create problems with people, but this is what, you know, just by reading it, it was occurring to me that I'm creating a problem.
Well, when I was on zoning board, we had two applications in front of us, and we made them correct their encroachment as part of their approval.
Right.
So
Okay.
that was in 2017. The zoning board had two applications, and they were both encroaching on similar situation, one at the end of Beach Street, and I believe one on Sussex. And they were both approved with the caveat that they removed the encroachment and put the fence in the right location.
Except.
They were on town property?
They were on, same exactly, they were in town right away.
Yeah, which is good, except for the fact that you had the authority because they were before you.
Correct.
I don't know that they're gonna be before any board, and if they don't go and 2 more years go by.
So we should just put them on notice that they.
I would think so,
Yeah.
if you decide that that's what we should do, but I have concern about it.
Do we have to take a vote on that?
I think we should.
Would everybody be okay with sending Mr. Buckner and his adjoining neighbor behind him a letter saying that the property is being encroached on and that whatever Mr. Apollo says the verbiage should be? Everybody
It's
okay with
encroaching on
that?
the public right-of-way. It's improper.
Now, would you require them to relocate the fence? I mean, if he's gonna build a new fence, don't you think it should be relocated?
Absolutely.
They have to, and I don't know why this doesn't go before the zoning board, honestly.
Well, normally it would if they took an appeal. So if they don't want to sit tight with it, it doesn't come here. It goes before the Board of Adjustment. They can handle it, that's fine.
And I'm concerned he doesn't go in front of the zoning
My concern is if he
board.
doesn't file an appeal, and then 2 more years go by, and then,
There's,
you know, we have a problem.
so let's, you need a
Can I
motion?
get a motion to send both homeowners a letter?
Before we do that, just,
Oh, sure, Mr. Ellen.
so when this property changed hands 2 years ago, or 18 years ago, or at least the survey was done 18 years ago, and there was the encroachment noted, that doesn't come before any body here in Town Hall? I mean,
No, it would be a private thing between the
Transaction.
seller and buyer. They would do a survey. Encroachments are around all the time. Some encroachments there is affirmative insurance, title insurance for. Some they don't even address. But the adverse possession is a problem because title insurance is not going to insure that.
okay.
So is everybody, motion to send,
I'll make a motion to send the letter.
second?
Second.
I'm not sure. And you're giving away the right of way.
Councilman Bruno?
Abstain.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes.
I mean, I'll give away my sidewalk if you want to show them. I have no problem.
Moving on to ordinances and legislations. I had brought up the social media ordinance last meeting, and in reviewing the employee handbook, I think, Mary Ann, I know we had talked about the social media policy at last
Yes.
month's meeting, and from what I'm reviewing in the employee handbook, I did get a PDF of it. It's more of a computer usage policy than it is a social media policy.
Quite lengthy, I don't know it off the top of my head, but
So could we maybe just revisit, maybe if you and I can discuss it and see with Ken and see where he thinks we could,
yeah, I guess if you mention what you're concerned about, if anybody has concerns
Yeah, I
about it,
think
then
it's
everybody
more-
submit their concerns.
I think it's more of a, personally, when reading what I read, it looks more like an internet usage for the office, like, you know, we reserve the right to know what you're looking at, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really relate to people being on Facebook, whether they're employees, whether they're governing officials, code officials, anybody like that.
Well, I think that the reason why you don't do that, because everybody has a right to free speech, and Ken doesn't happen to be here, but I think it only...
Well, we have a right to free speech to a certain extent, but like in Glen Rock right now, 2 of the council are being sued because they've blocked residents from their accounts that all the rest of the town is available to. So they've stopped free speech because they're censoring their accounts.
Their township, their
Facebook accounts, which are linked to their town accounts.
Well, maybe we should wait till Ken's back, because I would think that you can walk away from somebody if you don't want to hear what they're saying.
Not if you, I would imagine that if
You
you
cannot.
represent that you're representing the government, it's not your personal account.
Oh, no, yes, if it's an official account, then I think so.
That's what I'm saying. They are official accounts, and they're blocking people from posting on it because they're turning them off, however you do that, I don't know how. And that's becoming a censorship issue. That's what I'm talking about, you know.
Okay.
If people want to go look at, you know, their Facebook accounts at work, that's really what our policy talks about now is, hey, if you go online all day long and you're on Google, you know, how to fix your bathroom during work hours, we have the right to write you up on that. That's what it talks about, but it doesn't say that, you know, we can't go on Facebook and say, you know, make statements on there and there's no punishment for it.
I think the other issue is that there's
And it's Twitter, I'm just using Facebook, but it's all of them.
there's an
Twitter,
expectation
Instagram.
that the records clerk will have access to it. So if you have a social media account,
She should have access.
she would need to have access to it.
Well, again, it depends on if it's your official capacity.
If it's your official, if you're purporting that it's an official account. I mean, I don't, you know, it's not a
Do
secret
we have
that,
official Twitter accounts and all that social media stuff through the township? I don't.
well, there are people who do. There are people who have social media accounts that have their name along with a title and.
Are you talking so they have their title on there?
Yes.
Okay.
So anything that they say, in theory, should be discoverable, or whatever the term is, under Oprah, I would think. And if it's, you know, with Facebook, you could direct message or email, which circumvents any Outlook search. So there's a whole, you know, back channel.
Again, while you were gone, we were talking about this, the way I guess, I got a copy of the employee handbook, and to me, the employee handbook is talking about internet usage and what you're afforded at work here as an employee of the Township of Washington. But I don't think it has anything to protect us from what's going on in other towns in Bergen County, of people having their own Facebook accounts or Twitter accounts or Instagram accounts and blocking, you know, they're being sued because they're people are putting bad stuff on their accounts, so they're I don't know, they're blocking them. Like I'm using the word blocking, but they're not letting them post stuff. So they're, you know, not letting them have their freedom of speech because saying I don't want to hear what you're saying, and now they're being sued because of that, because they're saying we're being censored by the official. So that's where I was going with social media, not, you know, internet usage policies, which is what we have.
All right, so,
that's a stretch.
Yeah, so, well, but let me ask, so the problem you're looking at is anybody on the council or mayor
Or any municipal employee, like if I want to create, you know, superintendent of DMF website and, you know, and people start saying, you did a great job, and then you get a couple people saying, you did an awful job, and he says, well, I'm not letting these people talk on my thing anymore, and he blocks them.
Okay.
I'm making that up, there's no such
but,
site.
But, okay, so, but the exposure for the town you're talking about is via Oprah requests, really?
But also, shouldn't we have a policy on it, like?
Oh, you can have a policy, I mean, you could have a policy of, you know, you could have a lengthy policy of not not posting things having to do with your job, you don't represent the township, you could do a lot on policy if you want. I was thinking that you were talking about Oprah.
Also Oprah, like, that's what Mike was talking, right, like you're talking more about Oprah Discoverable.
That was an example I gave.
Yes, and that's
I think there's many examples.
And that, by the way, is a critical example, because even though it doesn't sound like it's an Oprah thing, because it may not be quite a governmental record, if that person is an official and is communicating that way, you know, it's...
And I'm not saying anybody is in violation of doing what I'm saying, I just want to protect us so we're covered, that we have a policy in effect.
Let's be proactive on it.
Yeah. So you're looking for somebody to write up a policy of...
I think we need to amend the computer usage policy to include, you know, if a person has an Instagram account that spews hate, and they're doing it while they're at work. Because I'm
see, that's you know, that's, I mean, it's a whole area. That's
but there's got to be a code of conduct for work, you know, stuff like that.
Well, code of conduct is different than making statements that.
Well, that's,
you know,
these are all things that have come up in the last year for municipal employees. I'm just trying to be a little proactive. I'm not saying, it's something, it's not going to happen overnight, this policy.
Are there any sources, Marion, that you're aware of to get
Well, we use the GIF manual on this subject, and
Right,
I know in the
right.
last version, shortly after I joined,
Right.
it was updated.
Right.
I'm just actually reading, I just got to the point about social media and what it
Right.
does, and I can see if there's been any updates.
Okay, take a
But,
look.
I mean, we generally follow theirs because it's designed to help us limit our risk.
Right.
So, if this talks about not, you
But I
know,
mean, do we, another thing Mary Ann had come up in discussion, does every employee receive a new employee handbook every year, or just when there's when they're hired?
when they're hired, they do, and then
then
if
do
there's
they
any
get-
modifications, and they have to sign
And
off.
do you have a sign, we have a
Yes,
sign sheet that
yes.
everybody's
Yeah,
received?
they have to say that they have to receive it. Actually, I have to get that from you and Art. I had asked for that, I think, when I disseminated it.
Okay.
There's a page on there I have to get you to sign off on.
Okay. That's all I have, gentlemen. Anything else, Mr. Ullman? Mr. Cummings?
No, I think, you know, certainly if someone wants to have a private social media account.
That's
and-
fine.
And spew all the hate they want.
No, but I'm saying
it's not
doing
the
it as
best,
a
but
town, but
if they say, Michael Ullman, councilman,
Then-
and start spewing hate, then it's a problem.
Yes.
Which, they're right, no. So I think we need to be, you know, mindful of that.
Yeah. Municipal Humane Law Enforcement Officer, we have a draft to review. Sue?
Yes, yes. Ken had drafted, there was actually, in your packet tonight, there's a couple new things in there since last meeting that the chief had received that he wanted you to be aware of, some training, et cetera. And Carol Tyler said that they will do their 6 hours of retraining to be certified. I know there's been a question of how much it would cost to have a municipal humane law enforcement officer. And if we go with Tyco, it is just as if they had a regular call coming out. I believe it's $60 a call, or $90 on the weekend, whatever the charge may be. It's a standard fee.
So it's the same fee as we
Yes.
have now for...
Only if they're called out will they charge us for it. So Ken had put everything together and drafted the ordinance for your review, and if you like what you see, we
And I
can
sent
put
it to
it
the chief
on.
also, he endorsed it.
The chief has endorsed
Yes, he
this
has.
ordinance?
Yeah. And I took out the original,
Having to carry a weapon
yeah,
and
yeah,
all
but I
that.
put that in as a possibility, I took it out,
Okay.
on the recommendation of the chief.
So there is a requirement to have this, and we have the ability to use an existing vendor for basically no extra fee to meet that requirement.
This is a no-brainer.
Just if they're called on for that duty, there's an extra fee.
Understood.
Gentlemen, we okay with having this put on the agenda for the next meeting? Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Actually, I think, Sue, did you bring, Sue actually brought the introductory resolution, so you could actually introduce it tonight if you want.
If you so feel. If you don't want to, we'll just put it on the last
Totally
meeting.
up to you.
Yep.
Is there any...
The only thing is,
is there any-
I just want to tell you.
Is there any date we're gonna miss if we...
Well,
put
they
it
said
on?
it was effective May 1. They didn't give us any time at all. We all of a
No,
sudden
they
got
didn't.
this up, right, Sue?
They didn't. They
Yeah,
really
I mean, all of a
didn't. And they
sudden I
still
got-
have training set up for anybody new
Right,
that's gonna commit
right.
to
But I
this.
mean, I can't imagine it's...
Gentlemen, are you okay with introducing this tonight for first reading? Mr. Bruno?
Whatever you want to do.
Mr. Ullman? Mr. Cummings said yes?
I'm
Mr.
fine.
Garcia?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then maybe what you could do is either do it now by...
Yeah, we're gonna do it now,
Okay,
then.
make a motion to suspend the rules.
Can I have a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Some, second.
Okay. Councilman Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cummings?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes.
So you're going to do this one, please.
Ordinance number 18-07, introduction by first reading, an ordinance establishing the position of municipal humane law enforcement officer. Motion to introduce and pass ordinance number 18-07 at first reading by title.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cummings?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
And Council President DeSena?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to discuss the ordinance in the public? Or is it-
So just introduction. they don't
Oh,
go
this
to
is
the
instruction, I'm sorry.
public.
All right. Resolution number 18-218, authorizing publication of ordinance number 18-07, and schedule the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cummings?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Moving down, indemnification ordinance, gentlemen, you had a copy in your last packet of the previous indemnification ordinance. Mr. Pollard, I guess it was asked, that was prepared and reviewed by you, correct?
No.
It was not?
No, well, it was, and then it was changed.
Okay.
And there's a provision in here which it was not in my draft, and I'd like to speak to it because I think it's something
Absolutely.
that people have to understand.
Let me just get to it, if you don't mind. In an effort to save paper, we've gone double-sided, and
It's a little difficult.
very difficult.
Sorry.
I think
Go back to
it's,
single if you'd like.
I think going back to single might be a little better. I'm getting
That's
like,
fine.
I don't know what the rest of you, but I'm getting a little crazy. I can't find
It's in
it.
here somewhere. It's in here.
That's it.
It's ordinance 12-10, gentlemen. It's in the packet, multiple reverse pages. So what?
Okay, so the indemnification's fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. As a matter of fact, you're covered by the JIF as it is. So for anything within the scope of what you do, you are covered, and there's no problem with having an ordinance for indemnification, and the one I did had the indemnification in there. However, somebody put in this provision regarding punitive damages, and that's the one that I think is very problematic, and that is section 12.2. Okay? So first you have to understand what punitive damages are, okay? So there's two kinds of damages. Basically, there's compensatory there's a couple of others, but the main two are compensatory damages to make you whole, you know, the damages that flow from the wrong. And then there's punitive or exemplary damages, which is a punishment for really very, very bad behavior, which I'll get into in a minute. It's an actual assessment of extra damages which have no relation to expert testimony, things of that nature, and there's a variety of things that the jury or the judge can use, including the financial ability to pay for punitive damages, okay? So, punitive damages are only awarded, and I just want to quote a couple things for you because I think it's important to hear it. So, there was a case, to recover punitive damages under New Jersey law, defendant must have acted with actual malice or a wanton, willful disregard of persons who might be harmed. Under New Jersey law, to warrant punitive damages award, the defendant's conduct must have been wantonly reckless or malicious. There must be an intentional wrongdoing in the sense of an evil-minded act or an act accompanied by a wanton and willful disregard of the rights of another. The key to the right to punitive damages is the wrongfulness of the intentional act. Our cases indicate that the requirements of willfulness and wantonness may be satisfied by showing that there has been a deliberate act or omission with knowledge of a high degree of probability of harm and reckless indifference to the consequences. There's also a statute about punitive damages, and it actually lays out what the trier of fact has to find to award punitive damages. So it actually is in the province of the judge or the jury, depending on the trier of fact, as to whether somebody's conduct was so outrageous, so wanton, so willful, so disregard of the norm that punitive damages should be awarded. And it goes into this. I don't want to read the whole thing because it basically kind of, it's long, whatever, but it's a whole roadmap for a jury or a judge to follow. So when and JIP does not cover punitive damages, okay? So if somebody has done something willfully and wantonly, the first thing is there would not be punitive damages unless you're actually in court and the trier of fact finds that you did these bad acts, okay? And then they will award punitive damages. And normally, they are the responsibility of the person who acted wantonly and willfully, okay? It's not covered by the town. It's certainly not covered by insurance, and it's going to, and this section 12.2 puts the situation out there that you are covered, where it says it actually puts it in the opinion of the council whether there was this wanton, willful conduct as opposed to the trier of fact. So you could imagine that if, and I'm not casting any aspersions, but you could see a situation where if somebody got sued and a trier of fact found that there was really bad conduct, that 3 council people decide, okay, we want to get this thing covered, so we'll vote that it's okay. And then who pays for that? The taxpayers. Because the the JIF will not take. Now, I know that we're very big here on, going to other towns, what the towns do and stuff like that. So I just happened to pull a couple. I just see that seems to be the bill of fare. So I just picked, the usual suspects. So I took Rivervale, which
Good. Is that a form of government?
you always run to that. So
Well, it's our form of government, right?
I think I go to that, right? So. Township shall not indemnify any person against the payment of punitive damages, penalties, or fines, but may provide the legal defense. And then they take away the legal defense if they find that the act was outside the scope of your authority, if it was willful, it was wanton, and whatever. So that was there. I also have one from Hillsdale, same thing, which is another one that people point out. I also have one from Fairlawn, which
But
sometimes.
they all have indemnification ordinances, what you're saying.
Indemnification ordinances, no punitive damages.
All right. So, gentlemen, would you be okay if Ken rewords this ordinance?
I would basically
section out.
delete that section.
Well, you had said
yeah,
Rivervale has a different type of...
Yeah,
saying
exactly.
that
I would
may-
take Rivervale's is fine,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Would everybody be okay to have him come back to us for the next meeting with a revised ordinance to pursue?
What would be a situation where punitive damages would be? I mean, currently, in the media, there's a lot of talking of sexual harassment. So would someone accused of sexual harassment and found guilty, could they be could they be assessed punitive damages?
It would depend on the degree of conduct of what that person did, but the question here is that, when you talk about sexual harassment, you're not supposed to be indemnified for that no matter what, because we have a policy against it. And the town is not responsible for it, but there could be compensatory damages, could be punitive damages. On that one, we could offer a defense, but if the case is lost, I mean, the whole boat could be the responsibility of the person who does that.
Okay.
The punitive damage and compensatory thing that I'm kind of referring to is where somebody deliberately did something. Not let's get rid of sexual harassment. Let's just talk about defamation, or let's talk about other torts that there are. If somebody willfully really went out of their way to hurt, to be in violation of what punitive damages, proscribes, then you would do it. It has to be pretty bad to get punitive damages. I mean, you can get them, but it's got to be bad. But the bottom line is that you got to go back for a second and say it this way too, is that everybody up here is up here to do their job within the scope of their authority, okay? And when you get to the point of willful disregard and wanton conduct and stuff like that, that's like out there, and it's not covered by insurance, and that's the problem, because then let's assume for the moment that some huge award is given, the taxpayers are going to have to pay it. You're going to have to.
They have that in Congress, so, I mean, we can't have it here.
Well, we'll not talk about Congress or anybody in there.
Okay.
Remember, this is Washington Township, special place.
Okay.
Special place.
You're right about that.
So would everybody take a straw poll, would be okay with this, having Ken
Yes.
rewrite 12.2 and amend it and make it Pollarese?
Yes.
Just invented a new word.
A new word. Mr. Cumming, you okay with that?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Bruno?
Yep.
Mr. Cassius?
Yep.
Ken, if you could
Put it into Pollarese, huh?
put it into Pollarese.
Okay.
Phonics and colors.
We went over the retail marijuana store ordinance already. Number 5 is Green Team resolutions for dashboard points towards sustainable New Jersey.
That's what I said about
From the Green Team. I guess Mr. Sears is here for the Green Team. Should I come up? Sure.
Good evening, I've been here earlier, I saw 10,000 people, I think I'm gonna leave, come back later. Thank you, the Green Team is working very hard for the township. Last week, you guys
Excuse me.
passed the, excuse me?
Can you identify yourself for the record, please?
Tom Sears, 600 B Street, Washington Township.
Thank you.
Last council meeting, you passed an ordinance, and I didn't get here in time, and the question was, what was this grant or was used for. Under the state of New Jersey, we're required to have certain aspects for shade tree committee and things that would protect the town. There's some steps that have to be taken for us to get underneath the state tree protection, where if a tree falls down, the town is protected and nobody can sue the town. One of the steps was to go take a core training class down in Rutgers, which 3 of us did. Councilman Cummings, Dan Scolari, and myself took the 8-hour course down in Rutgers. A very interesting course. It led us to call New Jersey Forestry, and we did take a walk through town, several hours, which he pointed out certain things for this town what we should be doing. But the purpose of asking for that grant is to hire what they call as a tree specialist that will write a 5-year plan for us. That 5-year plan, when that person comes in, will analyze all the township property, we'll look at our roadways, they will give us a risk management hazardous report on the trees that are in bad shape, trees that should be planted. They also have a program called iTree. If you go on there and you look at Washington Township and look at the canopy of the town, now the canopy of the town shows all the greenery, which helps get pollution out and keeps the town with clean air. We've lost a lot of it along L Road where that construction is going on over there, that you physically can see that, and it'll tell you the type of pollution that's being brought into the township. And I know that they were supposed to replace some trees there. I don't know if it's been done or not, but the purpose of that grant is to hire this person who'll come in and work with the green team and will come up with a risk management 5-year plan for the township. Now, what that will do for us with the core training that now covers us underneath the state green tree program, which we have to get certification, I think 8 units every 2 years or something. It goes for 1 civilian, 1 public employee, and I added Councilman Cummings, because when you read into the law, a councilman could be either a public employee or a civilian. So that gives us the opportunity, if one of us cannot make it, Art can go and we'll still get our certification. To keep that certification puts us underneath the state umbrella for trees. And what this grant writer, not the grant writer, the risk management person will do is they will tell us the proper trees to be planted in the township. Now, talking to Brian down at the State Forestry, when he came and we walked through the town, he told us the trees that were going to come down. And those are the trees that came down that he pointed out to us. Some of them were pruned improperly by Public Service Gas and Electric. You can see the weight difference on the trees, on how they're leaning towards the roads. And there's some trees that we should not be planting. Ash, red maple. Red maple has in South Jersey, they are covered with some type of fungus that's killing them all. And all the ash trees in the state of New Jersey should be depleted within 20 years if they don't start injecting these trees. So we got that down to core training, which was really interesting. It was well worth the investment that the township's putting out for us. And I did contact one of the risk management tree people, and I'm setting up with a meeting so we can start that program right away. She can come into the township, work with the green team. She can give us a 5-year plan. We would fall underneath the state program. Once we complete that program, we are now capable to get a $60,000 grant to remove the trees that she has declared are hazardous, and with that other with the money also plant trees that should be planted in the township.
Tom, that's just for for public land, right? Not for private?
Well, she's going to do what they call as a road survey.
Okay.
Which will travel the roads and give us some pointers. Now, when we were here with the New Jersey Forestry guy, we went down to Carriage Court. And if you get down there, you'll see all those pine trees along the thing are all falling over and dead. And the reason why they're falling over and dying is because they were built on a berm, and that's where trees were planted. And trees have to be on flat ground. So that was improper planting and improper planning on putting trees in there. So they're going to map that out for us and get us a map of the town on where we should be within 5 years.
But again, is that for private, just strictly public land that the
Public
town
lands
owns,
right
or
now.
or private?
Yeah.
Can I just interject? Carriage, we're not responsible for those trees, the parkway is.
No, exactly. But I see he pointed them out to us
Oh,
on
okay,
how
I just
these
want to make sure,
trees.
because I don't want people listening thinking
No,
that's our
these
responsibility.
trees fell over, and he pointed out when we were doing our walkthrough.
Okay. Thank you.
But we do have a list of trees, if you're taking down trees, the trees that the state has asked us, or asked the community to plant. So I have that list here. We can make it public and give it out if we take trees down. I know it's a 2-for-1 ratio on the planning board. If you want to put a tree up, we have a list of trees that they suggest that we put back in place. Okay? So that's the first thing that the green team, well, let me get back to the green team. We have 6 active members, and the 6 active members are divided into subgroups, each handling a particular task. So we have members that will interface with the schools. We have members will now interface with New Jersey Forestry, and we have members that will work with the community and like a public garden and dog walks that we're looking at to do. So we're built in a tier coming to the top. So we're trying to cover as many aspects of New Jersey sustainable energy as possible. I had a meeting the other day about solar paneling. So I know you guys are talking about building a new firehouse and DPW, but if you were to put solar paneling on top of the roofs, New Jersey will pay 80% of the building costs. So that's something to consider going forward. And if you do go solar on those buildings, we will go from a bronze to a gold, which will allow us to get into a higher grant of millions of dollars. How that tier is built, it's bronze, silver, and gold. So that's something to think about going forward.
Don, when you say 80%?
They will pay 80% of the construction of the building.
Of the cost of the solar panels?
Of the building.
Of the building?
Yes.
Let's put solar panels on it.
So, I mean, we're finding these things out as we're taking these courses and getting further down, you know, into the, on what we think should be the direction, or the healthy direction for the town. And a couple of things that we have already have on our dashboard here is we interface with the, now with the library and with Municipal Alliance. We joined a group called Hub, and now, and we also joined the Community New Jersey Forestry. So we have a couple of groups that we have not joined. Now, Hub is a bunch of Bergen County towns, and they sort of work together to get ideas. And they also interface with the watershed people that we just did our cleanup on April the 28th. So I don't know if you heard of our numbers, but they were outstanding according to Bergen County and the watershed group that does all of the county waterway. So on April the 28th, we did Pascack Brook from behind the library, all the way down along the waterway to the end of the shopping center, and then there is a right-hand waterway that goes up past the movie house. So that waterway is what we cleaned up, and then we went up to Lincoln Park. So we had actually 2, because there's streams that go through Lincoln Park that feed down there. I'll stay with the waterway first, and then we'll explain to you what we did. So in that one day that we cleaned up, I know when they say Lincoln Park, people don't know where Lincoln Park is, but it's off of Beechwood. So our total tonnage or our total pounds that we removed from those two cleanups was 2,020 pounds of material. And it breaks down to commingles, which is glass and tin, glass and aluminum was 646 pounds, 852 pounds of trash that was taken out of out of the waterway and up at the park, and 474 pounds of metal that was tossed back there. Now, when we cleaned up the waterway, it was just loaded with plastic bags and bottles, and if you get further down to the very end, it's becoming a dump site, it looks like, for some lawn and garden people. And that's going to have to be stopped because it's going to clog up the waterway. We didn't go any further down past that because we now head towards the church property where all the trees are down. And I know, Mr. Bruno, you asked about that when we did the walkway. I referred that to the Park Commission guy because those trees are down, they're going to have to be cleaned up. Also, we referred that to the Mosquito Commission because if it's blocking the water flow, mosquitoes build up. So we'll see what happens with that. The biggest eye-opener was Lincoln Park. When we did our primary walkthrough, it was loaded with paint cans and garbage. The guy that was helping Alex, that was running the watershed, also is in charge of hazmat. So he sent a hazmat team up to the park and pulled out the water cans and garbage bags that were there. They were trying to find a name or anything that they can trace back to who's dumping paint cans up there. It's he told me that the fines will be in the thousands if they catch the person. When we did do the cleanup there, it seems to be a lot of local garbage being dumped in that park, from barbed wire to I-beams to lead pipes. There was bird baths, water fountain, plastic water fountain, steel cage. This is all what the scouts cleaned up. They did a terrific job up there. There's no dumping signs at all around that area. And at the west end of the park, it looks like people have been dumping tree trunks down in there and then like a sewage pipe. So hopefully that has to be cleaned up and no dumping signs back there. The guy from the hazmat team told me he would visit the park once a month just to look around to see if anybody's dumping paint cans, lead pipes, or anything that's up there. So that's the hub of the waterway. I heard you talk about an outreach for special, for emergencies, and just today got a call from the state police with New Jersey Environmental. They have a new program called Registered Ready. I just got the brochures in the mail that anybody with special needs or emergency needs can register with the state, and they will notify the local communities coming back. If somebody needs special needs, you can register with the state police. So I'll be passing that brochure out next week. Hopefully we can get that going. The anti-idling, we've all saw this. I hope we get a local ordinance passed. Every idling a vehicle dumps 5 pounds of pollution into the air. Especially if you go around the shopping center where we have the diesels. I did talk to Matt over the Food Town and ask him, will he support this anti-idling with his trucks? He said absolutely. So we probably have to get some signs, but I still want to reach out to the council here to pass a local anti-idling.
But there's exemptions on those trucks, right? If they're refrigerated or whatever? Aren't there?
They can only go for so long, but they have to shut down, yes. So this is some of the things that the Green Team is looking at right now. What we also have on the table, just reading from what the achievements and what we have planned. We did a lead safety training program with the road department. That's one of the key items from the New Jersey program. We got them to do a program which logged in for us, gave us 10 points on our scale. We're looking at emergency efficiencies for the town and DPW. There's some grants coming down we're looking into to see how we can apply for them. We told you about the community gardening, smoke-free and tobacco-free. We're looking to expand that to more of the parks in town. I know we have a couple of signs here or there, but we like to expand it a little further, to try and keep the community as clean as possible. We do have a cell recycling phone, if you saw it in the lobby. That is 10 points towards our environmental for our bronze. You can drop a cell phone off, just make sure you wipe the data off your cell phone. The good thing about that is that there's vendors that will come and analyze the cell phones, and if they're worthwhile for resale, they will give us a cost back for anything that's resellable. Otherwise, that's just e-recyclable. We're looking to put 2 e-recyclable bins up in the DPW building. No TVs at this time, they're just too big for the DPW to handle. But the e-recyclable bins are 4x4 boxes. You should be able to handle that. The guy will come in every week, haul them out and replace the box, give us what our credits towards our tonnage. So that's something we're looking into.
Mr. DeSami, Mr. Sears, there was a law passed last year about recycling, and if we start opening that door where we're recycling electronics, we're going to have to, a lot of laws to comply with. There is a law
What we're working with are 2 of the gold green teams, which is Ridgewood and Park Ridge. Those 2 green teams have been doing very well with that program.
Okay, because right now, they passed a law, everybody who manufactures or retails a recycling has to accept it. So when you go to any Best Buy, for instance, or Verizon, you buy a new phone, they have to take your phone, your old phone, and they have to recycle it for you. Same thing with the other materials. So just so everybody understands that those are options. If you go to buy a new TV or replace a computer, the person who's selling it has to take your old one back.
Well, there's plenty of them out there because there seems to be 1 or 2 in a box already. We're looking at a bicycle and pedestrian path throughout town. The state has started a new program. I think if you read Pascack Press, so Westwood's already doing a pedestrian program. So we have a bicycle and pedestrian program we're looking at right now. 2 team members will be walking around and looking at the spots where a bicycle stand could be placed over the communal lot, at the library, and at Food Town. We're discussing that with Food Town. We have a couple of ordinances to adopt and purchase green material, the standard ones that I think we've been doing for years. So that was on the agenda. And there's a couple of more items that we can't talk about right now because we're still investigating. A new one that just came out for us is NJC, which is a power group that actually Westwood has joined this. What they do is they buy bulk power, and it sort of isolates public service gas and electric and gives us a cheaper rate to run the power throughout the town. That's everything. So I just got that the other day and I'm reading through it, and I noticed that Westwood has joined it. So if they joined it, they obviously must source
It's
some
like a
benefit
consortium
it.
for energy for municipalities, is that
Yes.
what it is?
So we're looking into that, and we'll see how that goes. Once we reach our 150 points bronze program, if we reach that with the events we're doing, we now get into the higher amount of money that we can apply for. It can go up to $330,000. If we reach the bronze, it's $330,000. Silver, at each level, you get higher and higher on the money you can ask for. So that's where we are right now with the green team. On the beautification project.
Excuse me, Tom?
I don't know if you've seen that.
Tom, just one quick question.
Yeah.
In any of your discussions, have you come across charging stations for electric cars?
Actually, there's two big ones. I'm taking a web program Friday afternoon about that, along with electric senior buses. Both of those two are hot items right now. And if we can get a charging station, and I know that we may, I think, talked about replacing the senior buses. If we can get a electric senior bus, which is offered by Public Service Gas and Electric, believe it or not, we see them down in the convention. Those two are really good hot items for the community. Plus, it brings us to a higher level on the dashboard.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are really two
So
good items.
PSC&G is offering up these electric buses?
Yes.
We'll take two.
Yeah, so, two good things, it's a good thing to look at. I'm taking a web class to find out, what, our responsibility is.
Sure.
They're the big things right now.
Yeah, I mean, my place of employment installed multiple charging stations for people who own, electric vehicles, and it's just becoming more and more prevalent, so if we can, open that up to, citizens who come to town hall and need to charge, or do something at the commuter parking to encourage that,
That's a win-win for the community and for the environment. If you want to get into the beautification and you want to do it another time,
We just
I'm
received
fine.
them, Mr. Sears, so I think we need to digest the beautification signs a little bit. right?
Yeah, I mean, I just ask you one thing, don't discuss the numbers in public, the cost, because I'm waiting for another bid, and if it doesn't come in the next couple of days, But when you look at the pictures, just realize it's general pictures that we're putting along the building. The signs will be totally new and different, okay, so that's totally different. And then when you're ready, I'll break down the building, where we are on trying to fix up the front of the building and the side and the back of town hall.
And these signs are all à la carte, because, I mean, there's quite a few, and some of them, quite honestly, at first glance, I'm not sure I'm 100% sure I want such a big...
This is for you guys to have a visual understanding of what would you like to see. This is ones that are out there that the original guy came and he did the designs.
Sure.
You can modify them, change them, but basically the numbers I can see are all the same. So you can do it, but this is an idea on where you want to go with the signs in the town.
And the other, I'm sorry, one other question. There was I don't know if it was you, I don't know if it might have been Councilman Cumming, or even Dr. Cascio, about the county having the ability to do some level of signage.
That's what I was just about to say.
Right. I think I provided that name of the county employee.
Yes, and have
who
not
has
gotten-
the engraving board and the plastic.
Yeah, have not gotten a return call.
Okay.
We'll work on it
Very
some more then.
quickly on
I know.
signage, does anybody realize that the Women's Club Daktronic sign going south on Pascack Road is out since Tuesday night storm? So I don't know.
Bernadette is aware.
She is
She didn't
okay.
know when it was out, but she was working on it today, trying, we had the DMF out there trying to troubleshoot. We were trying to figure out what it was. Apparently, power is into the unit. It's for a splitter, or I don't know if that's the right term. There's a wire that goes over. I said, can we see if maybe some varmints were eating the wires or something? So they're supposed to be assessing the situation and getting an electrician involved.
Okay.
Tom, I do have some questions for you.
Okay.
But the back of that sign, just so you know, is open. You know, I had asked last year to cover the back because it's wide open for exposure for rain, animals. People can cut the wires if they want. There's no backing in the back of those signs.
I know you brought that to my attention. In my discussion today, it made it seem like there was some type of backing that he had to remove, so.
It's open.
Yeah.
It's wide open, and that's why, you know, it's just, anybody can do what they want. They come rip things out. But at any rate, so, Tom, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to hear.
Nice job.
Especially trees, it's my biggest issue. Just a few questions for you. So Lincoln Park and the other parks, I guess I happen to know where Lincoln is because I live there, but when you're posting signs, are we posting, you know, fine, you know, you can be fined thousands of dollars, or, I haven't been back there in a long time.
Right now, there's no signs at all, Bob.
So you're gonna post?
I would have to direct that to the mayor to post.
Okay, so I think that's important to put those signs up there
Yeah.
too for, you know, fines. And the signs, do you have colored pictures of them? You do?
Yeah, I actually do, but we tried to print them and there's no colored, in the colored printer or something upstairs.
Maybe you
It
could,
came
But
today.
I think Sue has a copy of
I have one color.
Oh,
the
so,
colored.
I was just curious, how did you get these? I saw they're addressed to Matt, and they didn't come through my office.
Easy, I called Matt.
But they're
Matt sent
dated
them.
April 4th, this year. Oh,
so,
And the newer ones in there from the vendor, when we did a walkthrough on the signs for the VFW, one out in the front and the two.
Take a break.
So he added those pictures to the original request of the ones that were built when Matt had.
and they're still, either they were in my office till recently, or they're around.
Tom, also, on, you mentioned, you threw the word grant out there a lot today. Are you working with a grant writer?
No, because I don't think we have a grant writer. The only person I'm working with now has a grant with the ambulance corps, separate totally from all of this. They asked me to help them to get a grant for their emergency response trailer. So that's the only thing I'm working with them right now.
Peter,
The other grant would be the New Jersey forestry person.
Okay.
That helped me to walk through getting the money to hire the tree risk manager person.
Okay. Peter, are we working with the grant, the woman that came in, the grant writer?
We're trying to, there's, for layman's terms, there's a paperwork snafu that perhaps Ken or Mary Ann can explain slightly better than I can about what obstacle there is, because it's more of a legal thing.
Well, you don't need me here for that, yeah?
No.
No, but I do
Thank
want to
you.
ask you one other question.
Yeah, go
So, in the interim, do you have, for your beautification, do you have anything where we're going to get some shrubbery and some plants in the meantime underneath all the signs, so it looks presentable at least, from that guy on the corner there, that we can...
We
contact that?
are doing a planting this week on the Bakari and Seasons.
Across
And-
from...
Right. And
Okay.
then there's going to be something on the corner of School Street.
Okay, and what about where the electric signs are, underneath some of that area there?
That will be in the, not right now, because that will be in the overall plan, but I believe the mayor's going to have some flowers laid out across the Veterans Monument up on the hill and everything for
Okay.
that day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steers.
Okay.
And Tom, just so you know, I think maybe some Girl Scouts were out today doing the one out by Seasons.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
gave them the flags
Yeah.
and everything, so
Okay.
we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
So can we discuss the paper snafu for the grant writer?
We talked about it last time. We talked about it last time, it's the methodology of securing a grant writer based on the fact that the commission proposed is 10% of grants, and it could put us into over the $40,000 bid threshold. As such, we have to either go out to bid or do something called competitive contracting, which is a lesser-known thing, but it allows you to pick someone based on more than just the price the commission they want, so to speak, the compensation they want. It allows you to score them on other factors. The problem is, it's not widely done. I've never done it. Ken's never done it. They haven't done it in this town ever before. So I have to go out and see by doing a search who has possibly done this. And we will tell you, I know Ken, Mike DeSenda has said this, and other people that, well, other towns do it
Well,
differently.
there's 46 other municipalities that have hired her.
And some do it, and people do it ways that is not necessarily the way that we see the law requires. And I asked my teacher of my current purchasing class, and he agreed that competitive contracting is the way you have to do it. It's funny, there was somebody in the paper, whether it was today or yesterday, that was doing it a different way. You roll the dice if you're not doing it correctly.
Can we maybe just get an interpretation from somebody at the state?
We did. I called the League of Municipalities. Well, at least what happened was, I know that some of the towns did it with professional service.
Correct. The 46 I found were all.
I know, but the whole thing is when you look up something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was done right, even though that, And as a matter of fact, Matt Cavallo at first thought it was okay, but then after I kind of called his attention to a couple of things, he then agreed that it was not okay, and that competitive bidding or competitive contracting was the
When
thing.
did he talk to Matt? When did you talk to Matt?
I gave him a call. I just, as this thing was going on, I just gave him a call.
Okay. No, but what's interesting too.
Let's continue. So then I think Peter said to me that the League of Municipalities has a legal department, that they have all the ordinances and all of this, and he gave me a website. So I actually wrote a thing. I tried to call, but I wrote a thing to them and laid out the whole thing about grant writing. And the guy called me back today and said that, yes, you're right. It can't be by professional service. It's got to be either bidding or competitive contracting. And he did agree, and I said to him, we know that other towns do it, and they said, yes, they do, but it's not correct. So,
Okay, so I guess the real question then is we need to get this competitive bidding or competitive contracting done, because we've lost a lot of opportunities for 2018, and there's a lot of money we've lost out.
Which money? Because there's grants that are coming out now. We just got
There's a lot of Green Acres money that Marlene was discussing. There's a whole bunch of grants that we've lost out on for 2018 because of the delay. So if we can, I'd like to see us figure this out and get it done sooner than later, and not go into 2019 sitting in the same spot.
So can I?
Because whether we give Marlene 40, 100, if we give Marlene $100,000, that means she found $10 million for us. I have no problem giving Marlene $100,000 because she got us $10 million,
isn't it?
I'm sorry.
I was going to say.
I'm sorry, $1 million. So if Marlene gets us $1 million and we have to give her that money, it's $1 million more than we had in grants in the past. So I don't care, but we got to figure out a way to get her hired, or whoever hired, whatever grant consultant we hire. I was just looking at it as good enough for 46 other towns.
Here's the thing, Mike. If you want to do it, I'm not going to stand in your way. But
No, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything. If you're saying
when somebody asks me a question,
I understand what you're saying.
It's got to be the way, because you got auditors, you got.
Well, the same auditors are auditing them in the other town and saying it's okay.
Okay. Well, you know why? We actually even went to the auditor to get an opinion, but it kind of got deferred, right?
Yeah, he didn't give me an opinion.
Right. Right.
Because of the other 46 municipalities.
For whatever reason, we didn't get any answer. But this is the best answer that we can come up with in terms of, the proper way.
So can we maybe come up with a game plan for the next meeting of how we're going to...
I think that's a priority.
Well,
That's a priority.
Can I interject for a second? Thursday last week, I sent an email out to the clerks, and a couple came in very quickly, but I haven't really reviewed them, so I will share with Mary Ann tomorrow what I have seen. They kind of came in for a couple and then they stopped, so that means that a lot of people are not doing this particular competitive contracting, but we're bidding. So let me see what they come back, and I'll share it with Mary Ann tomorrow. Take a real look at them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Please.
Anything else, Mr. Bruno?
Nope.
Motion to enter into closed session?
Before we do that. if you don't
Oh, hold
mind.
on, Mr. Gassi, I'm sorry.
We talked, I forgot what meeting, we talked about maybe updating the logo and having a competition, Peter, about that. Are you still in favor of doing something for that, or keeping the logo the same? It is a little dated.
Yeah,
Now, we're flashing back to the 70s.
yeah, I would certainly be in favor of doing it. It's probably something we could introduce to the school system in the fall.
Yeah, exactly.
With a
yeah.
contest
It's a little
or
late
whatever,
now,
yes.
but,
But it's gonna-
that would be a great thing to
Yeah.
do.
But it's going to delay the beautification committee.
I don't think that they're ready to jump in with signs yet.
Yeah, I don't think
There's a lot
they're
of
ready.
other things to go
They got a
on.
lot of whittling to do, so
Right.
there'll be a lot of time. for that. Maybe we'll make it simple. So, thank you, Peter.
Yeah, no problem.
Down.
Now do I have a motion to enter into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
What are the topics?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. COA.
COA
It is
property acquisition.
COA property acquisition, Red House.
Red House. Councilman Bruno stepped out of the room for a second. Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Cumming.
Yes.
Councilman Ullman.
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes.
Red House sounds so ominous. The Red House.
If we can, Ricky's got to come down and do the microphone,
Nice
so
to
we can
see
take a 5-minute break and let him
You
come.
going to school?